A very well-known Kenyan leader has made a prediction that will definitely blow your mind. And this prediction is not going to come to pass, according to this Kenyan, many years from now. No. In fact, it has already started. In other words, what this man has said is that a revolution has already started in Kenya. Well, on my show today, we're going to look at the very latest political developments in the country. You know, I don't remember the last time political temperatures were as high as they are now in the motherland. I just don't remember. I just don't remember the last time things were this hot. I suspect it is unprecedented. We're going to review those developments and then conclude whether this man's prediction is wrong for the very first time, because he has made many predictions in the past which have come to pass. We're going to make a conclusion as to whether he is spot on or is very wrong. But I'd also like to give you a heads up on what else to look forward to on this packed show I've prepared for you today. And I'm sure this will interest most of us. The Kumekucha brand becomes the first to do an opinion poll on the presidential candidates for the forthcoming general elections, which includes new kid on the block, Edwin Sifuna. And the results which have come in are going to really surprise most of you. Kwani what are Kenyans smoking these days? Anyway, let's dive in. We'll look at that later. Now, in the run-up to the 2022 general elections, Professor Kivutha Kibwana started talking a language most Kenyans did not understand. Indeed, most of us completely ignored him. Professor Kibwana offered himself as an advisor to one of the presidential candidates at the time, William Ruto, and he offered to do it completely for free. Now, most Kenyans were puzzled. We all knew that Raila Odinga was going to win the elections. What was this professor talking about? Well, what he saw at that time that most of us missed, did it come to pass or did it not come to pass? Actually, it came to pass. The only thing that did not happen is that there was no violence. Because what he had clearly seen was a situation where violence would cause the two major presidential candidates to sit down and negotiate. But you'll remember that something very strange that still has no explanation happened. Raila Odinga's supporters, who almost brought the country to a standstill in 2017, when his victory was stolen by Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, this time round were quiet. They did nothing. Kenyans mourned in silence because it was even more obvious than it was in 2017 that yet again Raila's victory had been stolen. This time it was much, much more obvious. But for our purposes today, the good professor saw something that none of us saw coming. And now the latest is that he has seen something else. And this time round, this thing that he has seen has already started. A revolution in the country called Kenya. And he says that tear gas will not stop this revolution. Freedom is coming, he says. You know, there's this very famous African saying that a wise old man can see something when he's seated that a younger man cannot see even if they climb up a tree. But now let us look at the boiling political temperatures in the country, what is happening. And then from that, we will easily be able to tell whether Professor Kivutha Kibwana is spot on yet again or not. About 18 months to the next general elections, we're in full campaign mode. And the two sides of the political divide are clearly the one-term side and the two-term side. Two-term are, of course, supporters of the incumbent. And one-term, of course, is the opposition. Now, if you're not sure which side the vast majority of Kenyans fall, don't worry. Stay with me, and very shortly, it will become very obvious to you. And let us start with the latest controversy from the two-term chaps that has raised temperatures considerably in the country. Now, on Sunday, February 22nd, 2026, President William Samoei Ruto attended a church service at Jesus Compassion Ministry, GCM, in Ruiru, where this church was celebrating its 3rd anniversary. But actually things started happening even before this function kicked off, because one of the pastors suddenly resigned in a huff. Pastor Charles Wachira, who headed the Jesus Compassion Ministry, GCM, branch in the United States of America, resigned. Actually, he resigned in protest over Ruto attending this church. Hey, I'm assuming before tendering in his resignation, he called the bishop in charge of the ministry, Bishop Ben Gadungu, Mude Kienge, and protested over this visit, this attendance of the church by President Ruto. And he must have been turned down and told, no, this visit will go ahead because of 1, 2, 3. And so Pastor Charles Wachira had no option but to resign. Social media was set on fire after this resignation. Now, the gist of his resignation letter can be summed up in one sentence from that letter, and I quote, "The church must not appear indifferent to the pain of the people." Huh? What pain was he referring to? Who is causing this pain? Please educate me in the comments area. What is wrong with Kumekucha today? He cannot see the obvious. Anyway, that was not the end of the matter. The Gen Zs in this church protested after this church visit. And I'm also informed some members have said they're going to leave that ministry. They're going to leave that church completely in protest. Why? Because they're saying this regime is responsible for the deaths of so many Gen Zs during protests in the past. And therefore, on that point alone, they did not see how this visit by the president for a church service made any sense. Additionally, the Gen Zs were seeing betrayal because Bishop Kienge had promised to support and side with the Gen Zs. What was he now doing? Hosting the man heading the regime that had done so much damage and indeed continues to do so much damage to the Gen Zs. It doesn't make any sense to them. Now, for those of us who have still not yet seen the anger in the country, the venom against this administration that is seeking re-election, this is a good example that will help you wake up. Because what this means is that going forward, it may not be very easy for the President of the Republic of Kenya to find a church that will host him. Mr. President, sir, we really appreciate you wanting to visit our church, but I don't think it will be possible at this point in time. Hey, what is wrong with Kenyans? A church service, jameni. Actually, it was not very difficult to see this coming, because you see, the current regime rode into power through the church. The church in Kenya was fully behind him, and the other candidate was labeled Mganga, a I'm sure we all remember that. And so what has happened now is that the church is feeling very cheated. Congregants in churches in Kenya are feeling very conned because of what has unfolded. The policies of the William Samoei Ruto regime, his actions, which are very far from any principles of any church. Hiyo quote ya Pastor Charles Washira ni kali sana. The church must not appear indifferent to the pain of the people. End of quote. Now, the one-time guys have been very busy. Immediately after the drama of Kakamega, the Sifuna Babu Wino rally, very successful, in Kakamega, immediately after, Fred Matiang'i, a presidential candidate, is leading the united opposition in a 3-day tour of the land of the Abagusi. And yesterday there was a rally full of drama in Kisii, yeah, which I want to talk about briefly, okay? Today they're in Nyamira. In fact, I have just left the meeting where Gachagua was greeting the huge crowd with the following words. Hi, Makuzo. What? Now, in the Kisii rally yesterday, it seems that these Kenyans followed the lead of the Mulembe nation in Kakamega as far as dealing with goons is concerned. Indeed, they went a notch higher. The clips we have seen, there was no leader anywhere in the vicinity to save the goons and tell the people, wachana now, okay, let's take them to hospital, etc., etc. What happened in Kakamega? The leaders were nowhere in sight. In fact, a Probox vehicle, very similar to the Probox that was seen driving through that petrol station, it was seen on CCTV. On the day a man called Cyrus Njirongo left us, that Probox, full of tear gas canisters at the back and other weapons, was set on fire. The fate of the occupants of that Probox are not clear. But there are unconfirmed reports that one of them alimalizwa. And that is not all. The officers of Simba Arati, a very high-ranking ODM official, who is clearly on the side of two-term, the incumbent, his office iliwashwa moto. In fact, the united opposition, very concerned, held a press conference this morning condemning violence, okay, the violence that happened during the first day of their tour of Kisii yesterday. I am just praying and hoping that they'll be able to contain the anger of Kenyans. Yeah, I'm just praying and hoping. Because the anger levels in the country are at another unprecedented level. That should be very clear right now. And by the way, a very telltale clue of that Probox is that the occupants, goons supposedly, were wearing masks. Sounds familiar? I think it does. Because this violence is extremely worrying. And yet, the general elections are about 18 months away. What will happen in 3 months' time or 6 months' time? Oh, God Almighty, have mercy. But something else happened yesterday. Rigathi Gachagua landed in a place called Mulot in Bomet. Now, just hold on a minute. Bomet is where? Bomet is in the Rift Valley. That is the home province of the incumbent, President William Samoei Ruto. And guess what? The crowd there received Rigathi Gachagua very warmly. Hold on a minute. Is that right? Because we know Rigathi Gachagua was impeached and the whole thing was engineered right from State House and right from the handlers of President Ruto. So how is it that Bomet people welcomed Rigathi Gachagua so warmly? What's going on here? Surely it cannot be true that the crowd was very excitedly screaming one term, not 2 terms for the incumbent, 1 term. What's going on here? Well, it was very clear that the anger in Kenya towards this regime is also in Bomet. Kwani Bomet is not a part of Kenya? It is. And this rising anger we keep on talking about on this channel is countrywide. Further confirmation from Rigathi Gachagua's tour of Bomet. Let me just tell you the truth. Even during the honeymoon period of Uhuru Ruto, the union between former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and William Samoei Ruto, President Uhuru Kenyatta was never ever received this warmly in the Rift Valley. Never ever. Gachagua got such a warm reception. I could not believe. Actually, that may be very easy to explain. The suffering going on in the country has not skipped the Rift Valley, has not skipped Bomet. Definitely not. And of course, a lot of this suffering can directly be traced to the policies of the William Samoei Ruto regime. And so, we now need to ask the question in conclusion. Does Professor Kivutha Kibwana know what he's talking about? Does he? Now, recently, I came across a Kenyan who has just opened a restaurant. Actually, it's a very interesting concept, a 24-hour restaurant. And he was telling me he was very shocked at some of the applications he was receiving to fill in the positions of waiters at his restaurant. People with papers, people with qualifications, he could not believe. Bottom line, we have too many jobless Kenyans in the country. Very intelligent, young, qualified Kenyans. Obviously, the government's policy of sending people to foreign countries to suffer doing manual jobs has not helped. Indeed, instead it has created many, many problems, or rather escalated them. I'm even informed that there is a certain university in the Rift Valley that is actively sending out people to Russia. Now, I believe we all know the kind of job that is very readily available right now in Russia. I don't need to mention it. This is serious. Now, when you have so many highly qualified, frustrated young people in a country, what are you asking for? You tell me. I'm not going to say the word. You tell me. What do you expect? And I believe from the developments we've reviewed on my show today, it is very clear that the anger in Kenya is not only at a very high unprecedented level, it is still rising. How dangerous is that? I mean, the behavior of Kenyans against goons is a very dangerous, clear indicator that all is not well in the motherland. We're on the verge of something deadly. Bottom line, I strongly believe Professor Kivutha Kibwana, once again, is spot on. He has seen something that is already in our country. It's not coming, it is already here. It has started. Ay, 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 yeah. Now, as promised earlier on the show today, I asked a very simple question. If elections were held today, who would you vote for to be president? Now you can see the very latest results on your screens right now. And surprise, surprise, it is not Kalonzo Musyoka leading. No. Who is leading? Hey, I believe this is yet another confirmation of what we've been saying on this channel. The Sisi ni Sifuna movement is unstoppable. Now, we have been doing polls on Kumekucha for years, and a vast majority of our polls always reflect the mood in the country. And it is very interesting because this is a very wide cross-section of Kenyans from every single part of the country. And we even have many Kenyans based in the diaspora. And so I am more than convinced that this poll is very accurate. If elections were held today, the gentleman called Edwin Sifuna would win the presidency by a landslide. This millennial, born a handful of weeks before the August 1982 coup attempt, the fake coup where so many Kenyans lost their lives for nothing. This millennial, who is Senator of Nairobi and still the Secretary General of the ODM party, would win the elections without breaking into a sweat. That is what this poll is very, very clearly telling us. I believe I also need to quote one of the comments on this poll on the Kumekucha forum. Somebody said, Kenyans are really fed up of the old guard. And that explains very clearly why Kalonzo Musyoka, a favorite for many people to be the next president of Kenya, is trailing a brand new kid on the block, Edwin Sifuna. I believe now it is very clear why we have been having endless meetings at State House to discuss Edwin Sifuna. It is definitely not without reason. Hey, you know the two-term gang are in very serious trouble. They have spent a lot of time and money planning for the 2027 elections while focusing on Akina Kalonzo Musyoka, Akina Rigathi Gachagua, Akina Fred Matiang'i, etc., etc. But then now, suddenly, a new kid has entered the block and completely changed the arithmetic. And so now, at this 11th hour, they have to go back to the drawing boards and work out a brand new strategy, which I don't see. Because what has happened here is very interesting. And I'm sure most of us see this. The politicians have sat in the boardrooms and planned as usual, wamejipanga. But then the people power, have said, no, hatupangangwi. Hamtatupanga this time round. Clearly, that is what has happened. And the people have presented their candidate, Edwin Sifuna. Hey! Now the truth is, the united opposition so far have told us that they're fully backing and supporting Sifuna. But these are politicians. You can be sure they're jostling in the back rooms to ensure that they turn the tables and that the single opposition candidate ends up being one of them. And so our man Edwin Sifuna has to be super careful. Swahili elders have a very famous saying, Kikulacho kikongwoni mwako. What harms you is very close to you. Please allow me to leave it there for now. Now we are concluding, the offer as a result of our very generous sponsor. You remember in the previous video, I told you what he said, that he was very excited about this new development in Kenyan politics of Sisi Sifuna team. I am sure if previously his smile was reaching the ears, I am sure today that smile has gone beyond the ears. Because of this poll and also other developments in our politics. Things are moving very fast. And of course, this sponsor is a people power person. And according to him, information is important, very important to the people. Obviously for quality decision making. Going forward, you can see details of the offer on your screens right now. Only Kenya shillings 999 or $8 for the golden key that gives you access to all sensitive, paid for information on Kumekucha. Past, present, and anything that will come in the future. Please grab this opportunity. Don't hesitate. Don't even think about it. Please grab this amazing opportunity to get yourself the golden key. Until next time, this is Chris Karaoke Kumekucha.